Public. And next, we're going to hear from Rebecca White. She is the CEO of Engineers of Tomorrow. And Becky, I'm guessing that the topic that Kimberly was just sharing about people understanding the mining industry, and especially kids and their understanding of what's going on in the mining industry, is really going to resonate with you.
Oh yeah. It was a great, I wonder who organized this agenda. Yeah, great lead up. It's definitely something that we're passionate about, and using outreach, talking to kids about something is just such a magical way of getting messages out there in a really authentic way. Um, and, you can kind of impact the system, whatever system you're sort of looking um, at all these different points. Like the kids are getting the messages and then they're taking those stories home to tell their parents, and the people who are telling the stories are also learning. So the people, the field working, in our case, it's engineers, our STEM professionals are also like upping their skills and learning how to break down complex subjects and concepts, so that you can explain it to a 13-year-old. So it's definitely a win-win.
Fantastic. So what you're talking about is getting some of your volunteers that are engineers and engineering professionals that might work for mining companies to get in front of kids and talk about what they do. So they're inspiring the next generation as well as informing them about who an engineer is and what they do. So our theme today is the power of stories. And I'd love for you to share a little bit with us about the role that storytelling plays in the work that you do and that the volunteers of Engineers of Tomorrow are doing.
Of course. Well, it's pretty much like everything that we do, so it's very applicable. But just to give you all a little bit of context to what this kind of looks like is we find engineers, field working, STEM professionals, through employers like mining companies. Sometimes they find us, and we match them with local educators. So we get them into the classroom. There is some really great research and best practices we know when it comes to creating an impact, creating a positive experience for the students. One of those things is that you're going to have the opportunity to talk to them more than one time. So we are putting these kind of matches in place for the duration of the academic year. So those volunteers are getting the chance to use storytelling to create connections. Really what we're doing is about building connections, right? And that's why we're using storytelling, because that's really powerful in building connections. So they're getting the chance to go into the classroom and use storytelling to help the educator bring the STEM curriculum to life for those students. And I mean, I'm sure you can all imagine, put yourself back in the shoes of sitting behind your desk and listening to your teacher drone on about whatever, calculating volume of a cylinder or whatever it was. And then, having somebody like come in and explain to you, hey, like, this is how I actually use that in real life. And like, what? Like, this is a thing I might actually need to use in my life. So it's really cool to see those kind of light bulbs go off for the students. And so, of course, there's a win there. There's a win when it comes to the educators as well. Like, they really want to bring experiential learning into the classroom. So we have our educators also coming to us saying, hey, like, after my experience working with this person over the last 10 months, I've actually decided to change the way I teach. And next year I'm going to tweak a few things. So that's been really interesting. And then the volunteers, like, they come back to us and they tell us that they have never felt more connected to their engineering identity or their kind of roots of engineering, than they have when they're in the classroom with those students. So it's such a powerful way to drive like that like bring that energy back and get them excited again about what they're doing. Because like, let's be honest, we can all get stuck in that kind of daily grind of the never ending inbox and meetings and after meetings and deadlines and reports and, you know, you name it. And so to have a chance to go into the classroom and like, a lot of them will say, you know, there was a certain activity I did when I was in school that sort of inspired me to go down this path, and they can recreate that. And so it's really, really fun.
Oh, that's so special. So just to paint a picture of what this could look like for the mining leaders that are in our audience today, what would happen
Yeah.
is that you would go internally to your mining employees, specifically the engineers that would then be able to train with Engineers of Tomorrow and go into local classrooms to introduce themselves and say, you know, if it were me, I would say, hey, I'm Erica. I'm an engineer. And when I was your age, I used to love playing with Lego. And I used to love digging ditches in the driveway. That's a true story, by the way. I did used to love digging ditches in the driveway. And that was one of my sort of early warning signs that had me feel like, okay, I'm never going to be happy just behind my desk or in a lab. I'm going to want to have a tangible impact on the world. That's very important to me. And so we use these sort of early warning signs, or we can use them to introduce ourselves and to talk about what matters to us, why we love what we do, and then to create all of those benefits that we just talked about, right? Where the educators are getting something great out of it, the kids are getting something great out of it, the employees themselves are having a wonderful experience, you know, a break from the day to day and a chance to represent themselves. Tell me about the benefits to the employer. Like what have you seen from some of the partnerships you've had so far, or what would you foresee would be some of the benefits of mining companies of getting involved with Engineers of Tomorrow?
Oh, of course. There's so many, and we'll go through those. And I think as you were just describing back what I had kind of talked about, the words we like to use and the biggest role that we play in the work that we do is teaching these people how to talk to kids. And a big part of that is a human first approach. So when you're saying like, I like to dig in ditches, or like for me, I like to like bake. I love like taking raw materials and turning them into something. But I also, whenever I go into the classroom, I also like make sure that I tell kids like, hey, I actually have a hard time with mental math. And the teachers are like, what are you doing? Why are you like, no, don't tell them that. I'm like, no, I want them to know that I can, you know, it's hard for me. And I still was able to work hard and become an engineer. So with the employers, you know, talking about all the different wins that we have involved from the different kind of individual levels, from employer level, like it does check a bunch of boxes as well. So some of the things thinking about, like, of course, investing in future talent. So getting in there, talking to kids right away. It's just about awareness. Like we're just in there to raise awareness, particularly with the E in STEM, particular with engineering. It's such a stealth profession, like working behind the scenes. Or if you're in a community where it has a certain reputation, it's about getting in there early to be able to shift perceptions and put the stories behind behind it, so that they won't close doors. And that's a big thing for us, like with the students. Like we want to make sure that as they're progressing along their pathway, we want them to keep those doors open so that they can choose engineering, so that they can choose to go into mining in the future. So definitely it's, you know, an investment in future talent. Of course, it's like very easy alignment, I think, with any of the existing kind of corporate social responsibility work that I'm sure is happening in many of your organizations. Like it's working with the local communities, it's engaging your employees with, you know, their own students. And it's really fun. Like I hear from employers often, like we want to invest in organizations that our employees want to get involved with. So this is a great way to do that. We are a charity, so it kind of checks that box. Also, it's a great way to take action if you're wanting to say in terms of kind of promoting diversity and inclusion. So we don't necessarily say this because I think we just live it every day, but the work that we're doing in classrooms and talking and raising awareness and talking to kids about engineering, one of the reasons we do it in classrooms is because we have the girls and the boys in the classroom at that time. And so we know in engineering, the numbers of girls are still very, very low. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done to remove roadblocks and support them along their pathway into engineering and particularly into mining. Like I saw some really interesting data about what it's like for girls and women in mining today, right? So there is a lot of work that needs to happen there. So that supporting an organization like Engineers of Tomorrow and putting your employees into those classrooms is an action that you can take to promote that diversity and inclusion. And really, it's just about making it accessible. I already talked about like the energy that the employees get when they come back from these events. Like they're just giddy. Like they're just giddy. I've even had volunteers come to us and say, oh my gosh, like the kids gave me an idea. I think I might implement this in my work. Like they're getting inspired again, right? Like there's just something there when it comes to employee engagement, morale. And then obviously like I'm just following up a PR expert, but just having a visible impact. Like it's your employees in their local communities, they're there, like they're, like I said, their kids were going to go home and tell their parents about it, especially if they're doing the things that we tell them to do when they're in the classroom, right? And that's our goal, is that to get them excited. Our goal is not to get them in there to like teach them the math and the science, like the teacher's doing that. We want them to bring it to life with their story.
Beautiful tie into our theme. Thank you for that. And love the idea of giving people a chance to see what's possible for them. Because I know for myself as a kid, I was like, I want to make a difference. Like I always had this sense of like, I want to make a difference. And I know I like people. So I had an idea early in my career, like maybe I'm going to be a journalist. Like that would be fun because I'd get to tell stories, right?
Right.
And I also kind of wanted to be an astronaut because I think that symbolized like adventure and maybe also kind of my love for math and science. So, fast forward 20, 30 some years, and I'm an engineer who gets to do a lot of storytelling and having an impact, through the work that I'm doing right now. So I'm so interested in this exercise of helping kids understand where their future can go and just everything that's involved in creating those positive engineering experiences in their classroom in a way that maybe their teacher can't do because they don't have that lived experience. Really, how many wonderful effects that unlocks for the people involved in unlocking that experience for the kids.
Yeah, it's been magical, I would say, like to see, with the sort of surface level goal of career awareness or brand
Sure.
awareness, like
Yeah.
that's super surface level, but the way that we operate is very, very like values driven and human first. Like we want to live those values. Like we're telling them to be human beings when they go into the classroom. And so we treat them like human beings. Like we have hundreds of volunteers across the country now, and they're not a number. Like at any time I could be like, oh yeah, like Dave, he told me a story. This one volunteer we have, he's been with us for like more than a decade. He's awarded and he went to his iron ring ceremony recently. And lo and behold, one of the kids getting their ring was a kid that he connected with as an EIR volunteer when they were
Oh
in
my
like grade
gosh.
7 or 8. And so like we connect, all that to say, like we connect with all of our volunteers as humans too. Like we want to hear these stories, and yes, of course, like we're engineers, we love the numbers too, and we have all the data, and like it is very interesting, but we work really hard to make sure that we are collecting the qualitative information too.
Beautiful, beautiful. So for those who aren't familiar, the Iron Ring ceremony is what happens when you graduate an engineering program in Canada. So one of the Engineers of Tomorrow volunteers was able to see, it sounds like they saw them or they gave them the ring at their
Yeah,
engineering
he
ceremony.
just
So sort of,
bumped into the kid. Yeah, because it had been years and years since he had seen this kid, right? He probably didn't even recognize him. And the kid came up to him and was like, "Hey, like EIR Dave, remember me?"
oh, I love
Yeah.
that. So there's long-term talent pipeline
Yeah.
cultivation, and there's a whole lot of short-term benefits too around energizing and engaging communities. And yeah, it is pretty magical. Thank you for mapping that out for us, Becky, and for providing the opportunity for mining leaders to consider whether they might want to get involved with Engineers of Tomorrow and help turn some of their employees into ambassadors and members of your outreach team.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me and giving me the chance to connect. We would love to get it working with mining organizations. I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of potential.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much, Becky, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.